Hey everyone, welcome to The Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled you're here today because, wow, we are dissecting an incredibly fascinating piece of world building. We're going to explore the 16-year history of a post-apocalyptic society known as the Meridian Compact. We'll be tracking its rise and its ultimate collapse, all through the meticulous yet, deeply human records of its sole remaining archivist, a man named Severin Mast. Now, usually when we think about societies falling in post-apocalyptic stories, we think zombies, right? Or meteors. But this one fell to something far more terrifying: bureaucracy. So if you love dissecting how societies function, how they rebuild, and ultimately how they fall apart, you're in the exact right place. Right off the bat, Severin hits us with this deeply disruptive quote. He says, "I will tell you something useful before we begin. I am going to lie to you." Now, he explains that these lies aren't like deliberate deceptions, but they're the inevitable distortions of love, grief, and isolation. It's such a brilliant hook because it forces us, the audience, to immediately question the neutrality of all historical records. I mean, history is literally always filtered through the grief, love, or politics of the person writing it down. Okay, let's dive into this roadmap. We've got 6 parts to get through today. First, the illusion of neutrality. Second, founding the Meridian Compact. Third, the golden years. Fourth, the politics of compromise. Fifth, the architecture of collapse. And finally, number 6, the final dissolution. Starting right off with Section 1, the illusion of neutrality. So Severin Mast was trained in the old world institutional tradition. He fully believed that the record keeper could just be a lens, like a perfectly clear piece of glass passing information through without altering it. But he realized, decades too late unfortunately, that the record keeper always brings their own bias. You simply can't separate the history from the historian. And this brilliantly illustrates the archive's true purpose. The founders mandated a faithful record for governance, sure, but also for those who come after. Imagine writing a diary knowing it might be the literal only proof your city ever existed. Severin notes the melancholic weight of that phrase. Even at their founding, someone intuitively understood their society might not last forever. They were already leaving a message for the future. Moving right along to Section 2, founding the Meridian Compact. Let's move to the timeline and see how this builds. How did it begin? Well, like most things, it began in a room. Year 1, a hotel room in the eastern quarter of a ruined city, chosen simply because it sat above the water table. Because, let's face it, geography is destiny when you're recovering from a disaster. 8 people sat around a peeling laminate table and formalized a system of governance to turn a gathering of survivors into a real community. From that foundation in year 1, they'd face a massive test of their infrastructure during the water crisis in year 3, the looming external threat of the Hessian group in year 7, and finally, the ultimate structural change in year 15, bringing about the unified compact. Now, to understand everything that happens across that timeline, you absolutely have to understand the 2 central forces in the compact. And get this, they're siblings. Cosima Veth, the director of civil order, believed fiercely in process over power. She knew the law was flawed, for sure, but believed the only alternative was the rule of the strong. Her brother, Radovan Veth, held no official title, but was an absolute master of informal power. He valued outcomes over process and had this terrifying ability to make his own will look like organic consensus. It's the classic debate we see even today, right? Do you want a leader who plays strictly by the rules, even if it means losing, or a leader who gets things done, even if they kind of have to break the rules to do it? This sibling dynamic just perfectly encapsulates the ideological clash at the heart of all political science. Which brings us to Section 3. The golden years. Despite all those internal tensions, the compact actually worked. Years 5 through 9 represent a period of genuine stabilization. After years of catastrophic unpredictability following the collapse of the prior civilization, the compact finally provided a predictable tomorrow. People could plan, they could build, they could literally just breathe. By year 9, the population had grown to 1,400 people. Think about that stark contrast for a second. Going from a cold, post-apocalyptic ruin to a vibrant, bustling market of over 1,000 people. Severin describes walking through that market and feeling what he called warmth in a stone. It was the physical sensation of a community taking root. It wasn't just a project anymore, It was a place. But ironically, one of their greatest moments of unity didn't come from abundance. It actually came from a crisis. In year 3, their water reclamation system partially failed. The community had to aggressively ration water for weeks. Yet, instead of turning on each other, they organized. A founding member named Kael noted something really profound here. When there's enough, people calculate. When there isn't, some of them remember their people. It's a strange paradox of human nature, isn't it? Sometimes comfort completely isolates us, while disaster forces us to remember our shared humanity.
Section 4. The Politics of Compromise. Sadly, that unity wasn't permanent. As the compact grew, the foundational issues they had kind of glossed over began to fracture the society from the inside out. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is they didn't fall apart overnight. No, they slowly traded away their core principles for the sake of convenience and security. The brilliant engineer Yozld Kael warned the council that ignoring maintenance schedules would cause the water nodes to fail. Well, they ignored her. 3 out of 7 nodes failed, and the compact suffered a permanent capacity reduction to 70%. Think about a dripping faucet. You ignore it for months, right? Until the floorboards literally rot. That is exactly what happened here, physically and politically. Small, ignored warnings leading to permanent structural degradation.
And the biggest political leak came from the outside. To the east was another society, the Eastern Organization, run by a woman named Voss. Where the Meridian Compact was democratic and process-driven, the Eastern Organization was overwhelmingly authoritarian. Power was concentrated entirely in Voss. So, when a hostile faction called the Hessian Group threatened a shared resource, Radovan Veth bypassed Cosima's transparent laws entirely. In a shadow move, he secretly opened a back channel with Voss to create a joint military deterrent.
It poses a terrifying ethical question. Do good outcomes justify compromised processes? Radovan's secret, unilateral treaty successfully deterred the Hessian group's resource grab. I mean, no one died, the threat was neutralized, but he achieved it by permanently weakening the compact's democratic integrity. Have you ever experienced a situation where the rules were bypassed for convenience? If you bypassed the law to save the society, did you actually save it, or did you just begin the process of destroying it yourself?
Moving into Section 5, the architecture of collapse. Because the Meridian Compact did not fall to a sudden apocalyptic disaster. It was crushed by the overwhelming compounding pressure of 1,000 quiet compromises. Let's walk through this tragic narrative of falling dominoes real quick. It starts quietly in year 7, with Radovan bypassing the council for that Eastern security deal. By year 11, this backroom deal mutates into a formal arrangement, limiting the compact's autonomy. By year 14, sustained pressure from the Hessian Group forces total military coordination. And finally, by year 15, Voss leverages that dependency to demand a joint executive council. What started as an informal temporary fix slowly morphed into an unavoidable, tangled political mess. Cosima Veth realized the truth of the situation far, far too late. She observed, ratification is what you do to something that's already been done. So the crucial point is she was no longer governing. She was merely rubber-stamping her brother's backroom deals. The formal council meetings had become pure theater. The real, life-altering decisions were being made in the quiet spaces between those meetings, dictated entirely by Radovan's strategy and Voss's authoritarian leverage. And that brings us to our final section, Section 6, the final dissolution. Year 15, the year the Compact officially merged with the Eastern Organization, effectively losing its soul in the name of security. The new Unified Regional Compact established a 5-member coordinating body, but Voss had outmaneuvered them completely. Her representatives mathematically outnumbered the Compact's democratic loyalists. Almost immediately, when a new threat arose, this new council bypassed deliberation entirely and chose direct physical military pressure. The era of democratic process was officially dead. The Meridian Compact had returned to the exact thing Cosima feared most, the arrangements of the strong. As the society slipped away into authoritarianism, a dying founding member named Minka gave the archivist one final instruction. "Record that," she said. "The difficulty. Because it was the difficulty that made the things I did possible." Sanitizing history removes the very friction that makes human achievement real. The flaws, the arguments, the grueling difficulty of democratic process, that is the actual material of progress. And it leaves us with a final, really provocative question to think about. When a society falls, is it due to a sudden disaster, or just the slow accumulation of 1,000 quiet compromises? The Meridian Compact wasn't conquered by an invading army, and it wasn't destroyed by a natural disaster. It was negotiated away, meeting by meeting, exception by exception. And more importantly, what small compromises are we making today that are quietly building the architecture of tomorrow's collapse? Thank you so much for joining me to explore this incredible archive today. Keep asking questions, keep looking at the records, and I literally can't wait to dive into our next explainer with you.